Welcome back to Blockchain Mastery University. All right, so this week I've got a big update. I've actually created all the code to lock down the website for Blockchain Mastery University so that you can't access it unless you hold a token. All right, so if you don't have a token, then you're going to see this screen that says, you must be a token holder to access this website. So this is reading from the blockchain to see, if you have a token in your MetaMask wallet. And I'm going to talk through how I did this in this video so that you can build your own production applications just like this real one that we're doing here with this token-based authentication scheme. All right, so this is a lot of work. I spent pretty much a whole day building this for you all, so I'm going to go over in this video, and I'll put a link in the description below so that you can just take the code that I wrote here, spend all this time doing, and you can learn from my hard work. All right, so there's a lot that needs to happen in order to make this work. Right, basically the main purpose of this is that someone must hold a token to access the website, like we've talked about. You can go back in the previous videos in the series. I think the first video talks about token authentication. Right, so you can get a refresher on that if you want to. But basically, I've issued an Ethereum token that's on the blockchain, and you must hold it to access this website. So there's several different cases that we must cover in order for people to actually see the content on this. All right, so first, let's see here. Let me bump the font up. The first thing is they must hold token. All right, that's the most important thing. But there's lots of other cases we have to cover too. Like they must have MetaMask installed. All right, that's the Ethereum wallet that they use to connect their web browser to the blockchain. And the other thing is they need to be on the correct network. All right, so right now the token is deployed to the Cobon test network, so if they're on the main network, we need to handle that case too. And then finally, we must handle cases where they comply with our changes, and we show them a different screen, right? So basically, like if you get forwarded to this screen and then you make the change that we ask you to, we must handle that case as well. So this makes the code pretty complex, and I use a lot of sophisticated developer tools and techniques that I use on real world projects to make this happen. Like I built this like a real world project. So that's one of the big values I want to convey to you all today. Walk you through how I wrote all this code and give you some tips and tricks that you can use on your own professional level blockchain projects. If you're trying to build a portfolio, you can integrate some of this into your portfolio. If you've been inside the Blockchain Developer Bootcamp, this should look really familiar to you as well. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the code for this project. You can see the app.js file is the main kind of component that we use for this. It's got a lot of changes. You can see that we've moved some of this React router code into its own function, and then we basically handle all these cases here inside load blockchain data. We detect MetaMask, we detect the account, we make sure they're connected to the right network, and we fetch the token to make sure that they're a token holder before we do anything else in the app. All right, so I'm going to walk through all that here step by step in a minute, but that's kind of high level what's going on. So the first thing I want to talk about is React Router, because that's essentially where the authentication is happening. Okay, so React Router, what it does, it's a library that handles URLs inside your React application, right? So for example, inside of this React application, the /videos route will take you to the video vault section, okay, and the home route will take you to the homepage, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is basically some some client side routing that can be implemented this way. So what we have to do with React Router is extend its functionality to implement this authentication, right? And that's what we're doing here. So basically, if they try to visit the video vault or the home route and they don't meet all of our requirements, like they don't hold a token, then we want to send them somewhere else, right? In this case, we want to send them to the login page, right? So if I try to go to videos, right, it takes them back here and it shows them the sad face that there's a problem, and you must be a token holder to access this. They can't actually see the content in the video vault section or on the homepage or anything like that, right? So we handle both cases. Like if they try to visit it in their URL directly, like they won't work, and also if they try to click the button, they won't work either. So that's what React Router does. It takes care of both of those cases. You don't have to implement on-click handlers for the button or anything like that. It takes you to the route, and at the routing layer, that's where we perform the authentication. So I've refactored all the routes into this function right here. This is just the content, and then basically we have this prop that checks if the user is authenticated. And if they are authenticated, in this case they meet all requirements, they hold a token, then we show them the component that they asked for, right? So for example, this videos route, if they're authenticated, then we show them the video vault component, and if not, we issue a redirect to this login page. All right. So this route right here is something that's provided by React Router. We can see that it's imported here from React Router DOM, and we use this render function right here to check for the authentication. And if they don't meet it, then we redirect them to this login page. Right. So I created a new page for the login component. Let's see here. That checks for all these errors. All right. So basically, I'll show you how we read these errors in a minute, but this is the component that we render. It's got an error state and a success state, which I'll also talk about here momentarily. And basically, like if there's any authentication errors, then we show the errors, and if not, we show the success message. Okay. So that's the component that's governing this page with the sad face emoji that you see here. All right. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Sad face. Okay. So that's how we use React Router. That's where our main authentication is happening. So how do we generate this is authenticated property, and where does it come from? Where does it go? All that kind of stuff. Right. Well, this is where it gets a little complicated, right? But I'll try to break this down so that you can understand it pretty clearly. There is a complex procedure that we must perform to make sure that someone is authenticated, right? So we have to check all this stuff that I said a second ago. They must hold the token, they must have MetaMask installed, they must be on the correct network, and they must comply with our changes. So basically what we want to do is create a place in our app where we can check all these things. So this is essentially going to be one line of logic. And if that is true, then we're going to store that someplace in our application and then fetch it back out later when we try to authenticate them or show information on the page. And the same for each step. Basically, they have MetaMask installed, we're going to write that to our application, and if they don't, we can fetch that back out later and check if we want to show them things or not show them things, okay? So how do we do that? So we use a combination of different technologies and libraries in order to accomplish this, all right? So the two that we use are, Redux and also Reselect. So Redux gives us a place where we can store information in our application. It's like a big database on the client side. So if you've done any of my other tutorials on YouTube where I show you how to use the React state object, this is very similar, but it's much more robust, all right? It gets a little more complicated, but it's complexity that's needed in an application that's this sophisticated. All right, so if you've been inside the Blockchain Developer Bootcamp, you've used Redux on the project. I show you how to do this. If you're not inside the bootcamp and you want to learn more about how to implement Redux in your projects, that is a great place to do it. So Redux is going to act as our client-side database. All right, so whenever we walk through these procedures and say is MetaMask installed, we need a place to store that information. All right, so it's going to go into Redux. Say Redux here. All right, and then we want to read this information back out. All right, so how do we do that? We want to get it out of Redux and fetch it back into our application. Well, we do that with a library called Reselect. Okay, so here's Reselect. Basically, what it allows you to do is create these functions that check inside of Redux and fetch the information back out, and you can format it whenever you do it. Okay, so Redux stores all of its information inside of a state. All right, so if I open up Redux DevTools, I'll show you. let's see here, Redux DevTools. I can see the state of the application here. All right. So this is where we store all the data. And you can see like I have this thing here, like is MetaMask installed? Yes, it is. What network are you connected to? This. So this is all information that I've taken inside the code and stored into Redux. All right. So we've gone through all these checks. You can see them. Is MetaMask installed? Are they on the correct network? Do they hold a token? Like you can see all that inside this Redux DevTools here. It's like our database. Let me find it again. Sorry, I got to switch back over here. Here's the state. Here's the web, MetaMask is installed, true. Like are they connected to the right network? Network ID 42, this is Kovan network, yes, it's true, right? Here's their account, here's the token. This is how we see if they hold a token. We basically check the token with the account that they're currently connected with. So reselect allows us to fetch all that information back out and see like if it works inside our app. Okay. So Redux and reselect are how we get that information. We select it out of the Redux store, which you can see here. So I'm going to show you with the code how I do all that, how I make all those checks, and then stash all this information inside of state. Is Web3 installed? Is MetaMask installed? Are we on the right network? All right. So basically, you can watch me do that right here on the top level. We have this function component will mount, and we check all these things. These are functions that are defined in another file. I'll show you those in a minute. But basically, if MetaMask is installed, we set that, and then behind the scenes, that's getting written to this state, right? So if you go here in the state object, we can see MetaMask installed is true. Okay. So next, we say we get the network. In this case, the network ID 42 that corresponds to the Kovan network. Different blockchains have different network IDs. So the main Ethereum network is 1, Kovan is 42, et cetera, et cetera. So we basically want to make sure that they're on the Kovan network before we continue. If not, we just like exit this function. Same thing if MetaMask is installed, we stop doing anything because that's our first sort of like place to check. And also if if they're on the wrong network, we just stop doing things, right? So next we fetch their account from MetaMask and store it inside of state, right? You can see that here. You can see their account right here. Also the network ID. And then last we load the token, all right? We get the smart contract and we put it in state as well. You can see the token here. All right. And then finally, we load the balance of the token holder. All right. So basically, this is where the main part of the authentication happens. Like when we say, if you hold a token, you can access this website. And if you don't hold a token, then you cannot access this website. So what we have to do is fetch the token balance and store it into state. And then we check to see if this person has any tokens. And if they do, then they can access the site. Okay. So you can see that here under token, we said the balance is 0 for this particular account in MetaMask. And it says, you must be a token holder to access this website. But if I go to a different account in MetaMask that does have a token, right? I go to account 1, refresh the page, and boom, you're all set. All right. That's our sort of success state. And we can start mastering blockchain now. And that takes us back to the home page. So we're authenticated, right? But if I go back and select, account that doesn't, and I refresh the page, then there's a problem. You must be a token holder to access this website. So I'll pause really quickly and show you that again. So if I go to the, if I comply with the changes and actually, change the account, all right, I'm still on the login page, but I refresh and it says, okay, you're all set. So that's this component here. Let's see here, the login component. So that's what I show you. Inside of here, here's the main component. Basically, if there were any authentication errors, basically if any of these conditions were unmet, if they didn't hold MetaMask, if they didn't hold, if they didn't have a token, if they weren't on the right network, then we say there's an error, and we show them the error state, which is this right here. It says, whoops, there's a problem, and then it shows you what the problem is here. Okay, and then if there are no errors, then on that page we just show you this basic success message that says, okay, you've done everything correctly, you're all set. You can start going to the home page here. Okay. So that's what it looks like whenever you see this, you're all set message, right? Okay, so let's continue on now and talk about how we actually put things into the state. So that's what's happening behind the scenes here. As I said, we walk through this whole procedure. We check for MetaMask. So, see this function, check MetaMask. We pass in Web3. We pass this thing called dispatch. What the heck is going on here? Well, let's go ahead and open up this file. So let's go to store interactions. And here's our function for checking MetaMask. So let me explain what this does. Basically, this function takes our Web3 instance that we created here. All right, here's Web3. And it passes it into this function, and also this thing called dispatch. So I'll explain that. So what it does is it just checks to see if MetaMask is installed by seeing if Web3 is undefined. And if Web3 is undefined, then we know that they aren't connected with MetaMask. Okay. So that's going to value true or false. If it's true, that's what the variable is going to be. If it's false, that's what the variable is going to be. And then we do this thing called dispatch, all right? And then we return the value true or false. So what does dispatch do? Well, it's a function inside of Redux that dispatches an action, all right? And what the actions inside of Redux do are let them know that an event happened. That's basically what an action is. It's kind of like an event, all right? So I'll show you that here. So basically Redux, you have actions. Action creators. Well, let's do that. Action creators, actions, dispatch, and then the store. All right, I kept calling this thing a state earlier, but that's really the Redux store. I kind of got my terminology mixed up there. Sorry, guys. So anyways, how Redux works is, you dispatch an action, all right, with an action creator, and then that gets put in the store. And I forgot one thing here. After the actions, it goes to a reducer. All right, so the actions get handled by the reducer, all right, and the reducer puts the data in the store. So I'll walk you through how this happens. Basically, we do MetaMask check. This is a function that this is an action creator. That's what this is. Actions. You see MetaMask check. This is how you define an action creator like this, right? Returns an action, which is basically just a JavaScript object that has a type, this is MetaMask checked, and then it has the value, is MetaMask installed, true or false? That's all it does, okay? And so we dispatch the action like that, all right? Return MetaMask installed, and then what we do is this action is going to go to the Redux store, right? Which is this thing we see here. Here's a Redux store that shows you, is MetaMask installed or not? Well, how do we get this value inside of here? Well, that's where reducers come into play, right? That's this step here, reducers, okay? So we can create a reducer like this. This is basically just a function that has a giant switch statement. This is a switch statement in JavaScript. It just handles each action, right? So if the action is MetaMask checked, then it just formats the action and puts it inside the state like this. So all this does is returns a new copy of the state with the ES6 spread operator. That's what this is here. It just adds a new copy of the state and it adds this MetaMask installed true or false value that you see here, right? So I'll show you like this. So your state, MetaMask installed, true or false. Okay, and you can actually see what happens. Here's the action over here in Redux DevTools. And MetaMask checked. You can see what happened on the diff. Basically, it updated the state to say MetaMask installed true. Okay, so that's what this reducer does. It just checks that and then it adds to the state. So going back through the control flow here inside app.js, we check MetaMask. Right, that's this function here. And we pass in Web3 and it's dispatch. So dispatch allows us to trigger the action. That's just a special function inside of Redux. And we do this MetaMask checked function, and we pass in this true or false value. So the MetaMask checked function is inside of here, inside these actions that we defined, and it's just returns a JavaScript object that's handled by the reducer that says, if it's MetaMask checked, then add it to the state, and if it's something else, then handle it that way. All right, so that's how we put data inside of the state, inside of our front-end application. Anytime that we check for this, right? So if they have MetaMask installed, goes inside of Redux. That's how it goes inside Redux. So how do we read this information back out? Well, we use reselect, which I talked about earlier. So how do you make use of this data? Well, we use selectors. All right, so I'm going to show you that right now. So in this case, we don't need to read out every value. We don't need to say oops, sorry, maybe I have to just again. We don't have to check was MetaMask detected. We don't have to read out this value every single time in our app. All we really care about is the app still loading and is this user authenticated? So I'm going to show you how that works right now. So here's all the selectors for our application in this file here. Store selectors, let's see here. Yeah, you can see here, store selectors, index.js, okay? So what we do is we create one single selector that basically checks to see if this person's authenticated, right? And we basically say, is MetaMask installed? Is the network valid? And does this person hold a token? These are all different functions that we defined inside this file. So I'll talk about those individually. All right, so if MetaMask is installed, then basically, we just read it from the state. That's what this function looks like. It uses this get function. That's from Lodash. Basically, all it does is accept a JavaScript object, and it reads the Web3 key, and then MetaMask installed. And if that doesn't exist, then it won't blow up like a normal JavaScript object will. It'll just return whatever value we specify here, which in this case is going to be null. Okay, so I've created lots of different selectors inside here to fetch all this information out from the store. We can see let's see here. Let's go to the bottom. Let's look at the state. So all this information we have selected for. Is MetaMask installed? What's the Web3 connection? What's the network ID? What's the account? What's the token? And what's the token balance? Okay. So you can see this here, MetaMask installed account, network ID, is the network valid, right? I created a special selector just for that. It basically takes the network ID out of the state and makes sure that it's 42, which is the Kovan network. All right, we're currently requiring users to be on the Kovan network in order to use the app. So that's how that works, all right? To the token balance, are they a token holder? We created a special selector for that. All right, so we're not using all these in other places in our app. We're just using them to create 2 or 3 really important selectors, which are, is the app loading, right? So basically, if we haven't checked for MetaMask yet, it's still loading. If we haven't checked the network ID yet, it's still loading. If we haven't checked the account, token, or token balance, it's still loading. And is the user authenticated? Well, if MetaMask is installed is false, then no, they're not authenticated. If the network is invalid, then they're not authenticated. If they are not a token holder, then they're also not authenticated. But if all of these things evaluate to true, then we'll show them the website. So that's how this selector works. And basically, we just use it inside this component here. This thing's called map state props. Basically, all it does is take information out of the Redux store and inject it into the React props, which you can see here. These are just the kind of like the parameters for the component. And we pass all those, we fetch out the is authenticated value, right, from here. And we pass it down into this is authenticated prop for the content, right? The content goes here. So here's the content, and then inside of here, if they're authenticated, it does exactly what I showed you earlier, which is it exposes the route. If they're not authenticated, it redirects them to the login page with the errors. All right, and on the login page, we show the authentication errors with a selector as well. All right, so this was the login page, and here's where it uses the selector. Okay, so what it does is it basically returns an array of all errors. Right, so if there's nothing inside the array, then we know it's successful. We show the success message, and if it wasn't, if there were errors, then we show them here and we list them on the page. So basically, we have a special selector that says if MetaMask is not installed, then we add an error message to this array. You must use MetaMask to continue. If it's invalid, then we say you must be on the right network. And if you don't hold a token, we say you must hold a token in order to continue. And whatever the error is, we just show it here on the page. All right. So let's watch all that in action. Let's first do it on a non-Ethereum enabled browser. So I've opened this in Safari. Right, I don't have MetaMask installed, and it says whoops, there's a problem. You must have MetaMask installed to continue. If you need help, reach out to the community here. All right, so that handles that error. The next thing we want to do is check for let's see here, the right network. So let's change networks. Let's go to the main Ethereum network. And it says, whoops, there's a problem. Please connect to Kovan test network and MetaMask because the token isn't currently deployed to the main Ethereum network and we can't check your balance that way. So boom, there's that problem. All right, so if we fix it, we go back to, let's see here, Kovan, we compile the changes, it automatically refreshes, and we start mastering blockchain now. So the last thing is if we don't have a token, we observe the account that doesn't have one, and we try to access the site, and nope, there's a problem. You must be a token holder to access the site. All right, so that handles all of our cases. Again, this is some pretty sophisticated stuff. Take some time to browse through all this. Look at how this app works. If this is something that you want to implement into your own sort of pro-level blockchain apps, maybe you want to build a portfolio. This is really good stuff to draw from. Okay, this is the entry point where we're checking all this data, putting it inside the Redux store, fetching it back out with reselect. We've got selectors going on, action creators, actions, reducers, all kinds of really advanced stuff. So if you have any questions, reach out to the community about this stuff. I'll put the code that you can download in the description below. All right, so that's all I got for today. And until next time, thanks for watching Blockchain Mastery University.